Hi, I'm Poke Violon with your life lessons. Today's lesson is going to be making Poke's award-winning King Ranch chicken. Hasn't actually won any awards, but every time I've made it, I give myself a participation ribbon just for that. It's a great meal, very low cost. Today's Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, Stella, my wife, to my mom, and all the sister-in-laws and sister. Happy Mother's Day. To prep this meal, today I'm going to be cooking for 12 people. So when you take into account everything that I show you, chances are it's a casserole dish. So you're going to have to, ideally this casserole dish right here preps for 6 people for King Ranch chicken. Today I'm going to be making 2. So everything that's here that I'm going to show you is to feed 12 people. And when I ran the tape after purchasing everything today, it came out to $32. So that's not much. That's only $3 a person, less than $3 a person for this great meal. Now, what you're going to need to feed 12, starting all the way up here from the front, is I just buy the frozen chicken breast, and there's probably 6 or 7 pieces here, which we're going to boil, and of course we'll show you during the process. But you need chicken. You're going to need your tortillas, yellow tortillas, corn tortillas, not flour. Corn tortillas, which we're going to layer on the bottom. You're going to need celery. You're going to need, although from this whole thing of celery, which only costs like $1, we're probably only going to use 2 strands, and that's about it. And then just 1 white onion, which again, we'll probably use less than half of that. You're going to need your cheese, which is going to be a layer, which I just get mild cheddar cheese, and then I just get mozzarella cheese. And this one bag is the equivalent to these 2, so it's going to be evenly spread when we put it into the casserole dish once we do that. Now the mix, the juice, whatever you want to call it, that is going to consist of cream of chicken, cream of mushroom, and rotel, which I always just use the original rotel. It's diced tomatoes and green chilies that's in there. And in case I forget to tell you later, when you open the rotel, drain the water completely, 100%, and then use it. The only time I've made this, the only time it came out bad was I forgot to drain the water, so everything was real wet. When we tried to cut it, everything just oozed out. So keep that in mind when we get to that stage. But this is going to make the cream for the middle of the casserole. Then of course you definitely want to have some French bread. Just slice it down the middle, throw some butter on there, throw it in the oven when we're ready to eat. And these are all your ingredients that's gonna be made. And this, when I was in college, I've been making this for over 30 years. When I was in college, I was actually in the library. I found a South Texas cookbook and saw this recipe in there. So I've made this probably 100 times in the last 30 years. I've tweaked a few things. I'm not a big fan of onions, but I'll show you what we do to cut down on the onion taste. But this is what we're gonna need to make Poke's award-winning King Ranch chicken. So we're just gonna cut the celery down the middle and then turn it on its side, cut it into really small pieces. And we're gonna do both stalks that way. And I'll get to that in a little bit. And then you just take your big white onion, cut it right down the middle. Again, I'm not a big fan of onions, so the original recipe had it to put big pieces of onion in there, and I just couldn't do that. So here, the same thing, you're just gonna take your onions, and then you're just gonna cut them down into smaller pieces. And we're gonna saute it in butter until it's translucent later, so it's gonna be soft enough to where then you don't even taste it when it's in the King Ranch chicken. It obviously adds flavor, but you don't get the crunchiness of having your onions done. So I'm gonna finish with the onions, and I'm gonna finish cutting the celeries, but this is the ideal size when I cut stuff that I wanna use it for before we saute it. And I'm gonna finish that, and then we're gonna continue to keep putting the ingredients together to make this. The first step is obviously boiling the chicken. So we took the chicken from that pack, and all we're doing, we just start boiling it, and you can just boil it for 15-20 minutes, and then we'll go on to the next step. And what we did is, after we diced up the celery and the onions, we just added butter, a nice glob of butter to this pan, nice heat, and we sauteed them to where they're translucent. You can see them, you can see through them. This way they're nice and soft, which even if you don't get it all nice and soft later on when we bake this, it's gonna finish cooking them and get them really nice and soft anyway. So over here, we had the soups that are gonna go in here. And of course, if you look in there, we drained the rotel. That's important to get all the water out of there. You don't want the soup part of this soupy or wet. So we're gonna take each of these and we're gonna add them. This is the cream of mushroom. The cream of mushroom. That was the cream of chicken. The cream of mushroom. And both cans of rotel. And then at this point, all you're gonna do is really, since the heat's already been nice and hot, you're just gonna continue to stir it till you can see that everything's blended in fine. Because again, we're gonna bake this once we put it in the oven for 30 minutes. So it's gonna get hot and make it even more creamier. But for now, I'm gonna continue to stir this before we go to the next step. But just know that you just continue to just stir it till it becomes one. Like right here, you can see this is all still the cream of chicken, the cream of mushroom. So we'll keep doing this until we get to the next step. Okay, then what you do is after you boil the chicken always has these, what I call these little white particles on there. See all of that? You make sure you want to take off all of that while you do a nice clean rinse of the chicken. So that way it's nice and clean before you cut it up for this portion. Okay, now that we've boiled the chicken, got off all the little white particle stuff, you're not going to get all of it off, but that's not that big a deal. So now we're going to show you what size to cut this chicken in, which is an ideal size for your King Ranch chicken. And after you boil it, keep in mind sometimes when you cut the chicken, it still may be a little bit pink on the inside if you didn't boil it long enough, because you don't want to overboil it. But keep in mind that's still okay, because again, we're going to put it in the oven for 30 minutes and it's going to cook the rest of it. So this size right here is ideally, you want these little cubes about that size for the chicken. You don't want the chicken pieces to be too big. We just pretty much take it like this, just like we were doing with the onions and the celery. Not that small as the onion and the celery, but that's the size of the chicken pieces that you're going to need when we put a layer on the bottom of each of the casserole dishes. That's ideal. Okay, now we've taken all the ingredients that we prepped earlier at our house and we brought this to my mother's house because this is a Mother's Day lunch that we're going to make. So now what I did in advance was I went ahead and coated it with the corn tortillas. Now, I've seen the recipes where they just throw the tortillas on there, but that makes it very difficult to cut and also to eat. So you don't want big pieces of corn tortillas. So when you take your corn tortillas, this is the ideal size you want to make them, which is bigger than a quarter, less than a 50-cent piece. But you want to make sure to layer the entire bottom. You don't want a bunch of holes because you don't want the juice to seep through and get under the tortillas. Of course, you can't avoid that 100%, but still you have layers, because we're making 2 pans today, but we're not going to go through the whole motions on both pans. So here, this was the mix that we made that had the celery, the onions, the cream of mushroom, the cream of chicken, and the rotel. And so now we're just gonna, we brought that also. And then here's the chicken that we diced at the house. So here, the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna layer the chicken. You're just gonna start putting the layer on here of chicken. And we wanna make sure, now if you don't make enough chicken to fill up both trays, then what I do is I make a half tray, because it just depends. So here, we're just going to layer this one. We're going to work on this one first, and so that way we don't waste any time on the video. So here, that's a good enough amount here for the chicken. You want to make sure they're kind of layered all the way to the bottom here. So there, you have your layer of chicken. So now here's your layer of chicken. So now, and you've covered pretty much everything to where that way forkful, you're going to be getting some chicken. So here, then we just take this. We had prepped this at the house. So you just layer it on top. And what you're going to do is you're going to smooth it out all the way across. I call it the soup, but I don't know, the gravy, whatever you want to call it, is this part. So you just layer it all the way across. And there's still enough chicken, there's still enough gravy to make the second one. Like I said, we're just going to concentrate on this first one first. So now here, now that you have the juice part of it, now this was the cheese, the mild cheddar cheese that we got. So here, now here you just don't want to throw a big old glob on there. You just kind of sprinkle it on, go all the way across. And you do want to put plenty of cheese because that's the to me the best part's the cheese. So here you come through. I always put the cheddar cheese first. It doesn't make a difference between that and the mozzarella, but I make sure to cover the entire blend on top. Okay, that's the cheddar cheese. And we take the mozzarella cheese, same thing. Put this here. Okay, so now this is what your King Ranch chicken is going to look like, your casserole dish, when it's ready to go. Now we're going to preheat the oven to 325. Wait till it gets nice and hot, till it reaches 325, and then you're going to bake. You're going to put it in the oven for 30 minutes. But for the first 25 minutes, you're going to just have it in the oven, and for the last 5 minutes, we're going to put it on broil at 400 degrees for 5 minutes, for the last 5 minutes, so that way the top gets a nice brown coating to it. And that is what you'll see next, but this is what your casserole looks like before you put it in the oven. Okay, so now we hit the broil at 400. So see, if you look at the topping, it's nice and brown. So here, we're going to take, you just cut it. We're just going to take one portion out here, just so you can see. Let's see, the tortillas doesn't stick to the bottom. And if you want, I like to make it just with a side of corn, and that's it. Nothing else. Sometimes green beans, but just corn. And right there, that's your Polk's award-winning King Ranch chicken. Thank you very much for watching this video. I know the last part of it was a little dark. The lighting wasn't great over at my mom's, but turned out excellent, just like it always has. But I hope you enjoyed the video and look for more life lessons from Polk Violon. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and hopefully to see you soon. Thank you.